Welcome back to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. And a quick shout out to my newest patrons, Barbara W., Matt B., Mo P., and Jim M. Thank you all for choosing to support the channel. Hopefully this is not the big news for the day, but we did get Tesla's impact report for 2025, so I just want to run through a few points. I do have to say the graphics in this report are beautiful and very well done. Tesla called out the supercharger network has been matched with 100% renewable electricity for 5 years in a row, and Giga Berlin has done the same thing for 3 years in a row. I just want to clarify because people still get confused. This is really just an accounting claim. This does not mean that every electron used at these locations came from renewable energy. This is basically Tesla buying contracts for renewable energy elsewhere that matches the consumption at superchargers and at Giga Berlin. If you hear things like REC's renewable energy contracts or PPAs, power purchase agreements, most of the time, these are the vehicles Tesla uses to do this. So to keep it simple, Tesla buys these certificates or contracts from places like wind or solar farms. So for all the electricity Tesla uses at superchargers and at Giga Berlin, somewhere, someplace, an equal amount of renewable energy is being generated. And I'm sharing this refresher because a great talking point for us, charging an electric vehicle gets cleaner every year that the grid adds more renewable energy. Whereas gas cars, on the other hand, generally have the same level of pollution every single year. Also, remember to tell your circle the average price for a new vehicle in the US just over $49,000. But Tesla's Model 3 starts under $37,000. And yes, from a 5-year TCO, total cost of ownership perspective, the Model Y comes in more affordable than the Toyota RAV4. The former at 77 cents per mile and the RAV4 at 81 cents per mile. And I know many of you are like me. You still know people in real life that think the most affordable Tesla you can buy starts around $80,000. Tesla said that FSD is actually 5% more efficient than manual driving. And that was taken from real-world data from 65 million miles driven in 2025. So yes, FSD uses less energy than driving manually. On the Cybercab, Tesla said our new reaction injection molding, RIM, that process reduces manufacturing cycle times from hours to just minutes with paint injected during the molding process. I repeat, from hours to minutes. So whenever the Cybercab production hits some level of scale, it's going to be different than anything else we've seen. On the Semi, we've known this to be directionally true, but Tesla is now giving us a number. The Semi delivers a 50% reduction in the total cost of ownership for fleets operating in California and a 20% reduction across the United States. It's driven by a combination of energy efficiency, reduced maintenance, and lower labor requirements. I thought it was interesting. Tesla said our robotaxi fleet will leverage the existing supercharger network using the infrastructure we have already deployed to ensure rapid and reliable charging. So, yet another anecdote that is pushing us seemingly away from wireless charging. Now sure, maybe some of the infrastructure at these supercharger locations like Megapacks and those with solar can ultimately provide power through wireless charging in the future, but unless something changes, it's seeming like wireless charging is not a current priority for Tesla. Electricity demand from data centers grew by nearly 20% last year and is set to double by 2030. And that type of strain on the grid just means that Tesla's Megapacks will continue to become even more critical to managing that demand. Here's a fun fact for you. Last year alone, Tesla customers saved over $1 billion with a B energy costs through solar generation, Powerwall storage, and grid exports. By the end of 2025, over 213,000 Powerwall units were enrolled in VPP programs around the world. And Tesla said with full autonomy and maximized ride-hailing, Cybercab is projected to nearly halve emissions per mile compared to the Model 3 and the Model Y. Per the usual, it's a shame that 99% of people will never know anything about Tesla's impact reports. When the fact of the matter is Tesla's doing more for not just the environment, but for the grid and for road safety than any other company, and it's not even close. So yeah, for the seasons where Tesla stock seems stuck, the silver lining is that I can sleep well knowing I'm supporting a company I genuinely genuinely believe in and want to see succeed. Speaking of Tesla stock, I'm certainly not going to dive into this now ancient news that is Tesla's Q2 P&D report, but Tesla blew out the expectation that was somewhere between 410 and 420,000 vehicles, and yet Tesla stock on that day, on Thursday, had one of the worst days in the past year. And guys, what were we talking about before our interview with Gene, and what did we have confirmed with Gene? Auto deliveries, really no matter how good they can be right now, are not going to be stock movers for anything more than what we just saw, a buy the rumor, sell the news type of move. Which, when boiled down, is a very reasonable explanation for what happened. For Tesla to really break out of this 5-year channel, we need to have serious movement on the robotaxi scaling. And sure, you can nitpick geographies and say US demand was weak and the European rebound isn't sustainable, whatever narrative you want, but at the end of the day, some level of Tesla growing its deliveries is already baked in, and it's just no longer a real needle mover. But I will say, given these numbers and the way deliveries outpaced production, I think that should mean good things for Tesla's financials. And sure, there are people saying that's now 2 quarters back to back of so-so energy deployments, but just do not forget this is going to be very lumpy quarter to quarter. What really matters is we continue to get news like this. Today we heard that Esyasoft, a global leader in energy transition tech, today announced a landmark deal with Tesla to accelerate the deployment of battery energy storage across several high-growth markets. These companies will collaborate to develop, deploy, operate, and facilitate the management of an initial portfolio exceeding 15 gigawatt hours of energy storage capacity, creating one of the most significant battery storage initiatives announced globally, with the focus markets being the UK, Western Europe, the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, which is the Middle East, and Indian markets. These projects will be delivered by Tesla and Esyasoft teams and are expected to be introduced under the banner of Esyasoft Energy Storage powered by Tesla. So there's 15 gigawatt hours for phase 1 of this deal, which will be added to the 25 gigawatt hours of the Nat Power deal we just heard about. So that's 40 gigawatt hours across 2 deals, which is a full year of capacity from Lathrop. So Tesla really has broken into a new era of massive gigawatt hour battery storage deals. And obviously, eventually, those will get reported and hit the financials when certain milestones are met. And further, nearly every single anecdotal trend points to the Megapack continually becoming more important, not less. And we know Megapack 3 and the Megablock will continue to keep Tesla competitive and at or near the forefront. And financially, these 2 deals alone could end up in revenue for Tesla nearing $10 billion over the next few years. And real quick, before we move on from Tesla Energy, I did want to touch on the Tesla Home that Tesla just announced. They're calling this a HEMS, a home energy management system that comes standard in every Powerwall. Powered by Opticaster, our AI optimization software, it predicts your energy needs, automatically adjusts your usage across your appliances, and can help lower your electricity bills. Importantly, it's designed to work with a variety of home energy systems. Tesla Home connects Powerwall to solar panels, solar roof, wall connector, and other third-party energy products, with no additional equipment needed. Here's the scoop. This is largely technology Tesla has already had deployed in the field, operating on hundreds of thousands of homes. Most of this announcement is really a repackaging for the consumer. Just to clarify, Opticaster, which is the brain, it does the forecasting and the optimization and ultimately makes the decisions, has been in the field operating now for at least 1 year. Tesla's Opticaster works on both the Powerwall and on the Megapack. And yes, that is different than Tesla's Auto Bidder. The Auto Bidder platform is the one that monetizes battery capacity in wholesale electricity markets. So when you hear Auto Bidder, think at utility scale. And this new branding, Tesla Home, is really just a wrapper for Tesla's Opticaster, which yes, has already been coming standard for the Powerwall, but there are some new additions. One of those new additions, now owners have the option to monitor connected devices devices using smart breakers to adjust and optimize operations at the device level. So now remotely through the Tesla app, you'll be able to manage certain devices like your refrigerator or HVAC or internet, which of course becomes quite a useful feature in the event of a power outage. You can select what you want to continue running, and anything non-essential you can remotely turn off. And as far as I can tell right now, the smart breakers will be through Eaton. So Tesla's Opticaster works at the utility, commercial, and retail level. It's the machine learning optimization engine that forecasts and decides when and what to charge, store, discharge, and conserve. But again, this technology is not new. Tesla's AutoBidder primarily functions at the utility and commercial level. That's the trading platform that bids this battery capacity into the wholesale markets. But important to note, Tesla will take a fleet of Powerwalls through a program like a virtual power plant and then use AutoBidder at a commercial level through actual retail homes, but it's only when those homes are aggregated. And right now there is limited information about this new Tesla home, but it does appear like it will work with third-party solar. But to start, it looks like from a battery perspective, it'll only work with a Powerwall. So although much of this technology has already existed and Tesla is just repackaging it for a new consumer push, which I actually have no problems with, the big takeaway here is that capabilities like this make each individual product that much more attractive, meaning the Powerwall becomes even more beneficial if you add solar, and those can be optimized with a Tesla wall charger. And in the future or certain geographies, things like heat pumps become even more attractive. And the real beauty of it is the homeowner doesn't have to think about any of this. Rather than trying to optimize every single decision throughout the day, Tesla's software and hardware suite does it all on its own. So your car will charge and discharge at the best time. Your Powerwall will charge and discharge at the best times. Your home will draw power from the Powerwall and or the grid at the best times. It saves the consumer money, it eases the demand on the grid, and makes Tesla's suite of hardware products all more attractive, and also serves as a lock-in mechanism for consumers in the Tesla ecosystem. It makes it more attractive to get in and even harder to leave it. So I just wanted to make it clear it was not some major new hardware or software announcement, but rather a repackaging and reframing with some nice new additions. And sure, there are almost definitely some algorithm changes and things under the hood that we just don't know about, but much of that technology has already been operating in the real world now for years. Joe Tetmeyer shared a video today saying there's a group of 9 Cybercabs with the Cybercab logos getting ready to head out for testing in Austin. And I can't quite confirm from these images or video, but my expectation is any Cybercab with the Cybercab decal will not have a wheel and or pedals unless it is for an event. And David Moss spotted one of these Cybercabs out testing in the wild in Austin. But that's to be expected given that Tesla just told us in the impact report the Cybercab will be the primary robotaxi vehicle. Just FYI, on the robotaxi tracker dashboard, we have 102 vehicles now officially registered for Texas, but I changed the city-by-city banners to NA because we really don't know how many active vehicles Tesla has at any given time in any city. And unfortunately, the same is true for Miami. And what's worse is in Florida, we're likely not going to have this reporting that we get from the Texas DMV because Florida does not have the same autonomous laws. And I only have 4 active cities now because I'm excluding Tesla's ride hail in California because it's not officially robotaxi. So at this point in my eyes, if Tesla wants to be treated like one of the big boys, you need to go get the permit, remove the monitors, and then we can include the operations in California. But with Miami now live and an unknown but likely a very small vehicle fleet, we're now down to 4 cities that we could hear announcements about any day. And I know many out there are restless, very eager for even more fireworks than we got over the past week or so. Just don't forget, Tesla is quietly testing now in dozens of cities across the country. As Sawyer shared, it looks like the robotaxi service is testing in New Orleans. which, as we know, is a city that Tesla has not yet talked about officially. But between Model Ys and Cybercabs, there's likely north of 30 different cities where Tesla is doing actual robotaxi testing. So no, I'm not saying we're going to get dozens of new cities launched this year. Just don't make the mistake of thinking Tesla's only testing in a handful of cities right now, because that is not the case. I still think Elon's prediction of 12 states is overly optimistic for 2026, but there's a real chance Tesla has north of 500 Cybercabs out across the United States. In that Lars interview, when Herbert implied that Tesla had somewhere around 100 Cybercabs, Lars basically laughed at him, saying it's funny that that's how many Cybercabs they think Tesla has made, implying a lot more have been produced. And sure, some were for crash testing and have already been scrapped, but the number is higher than many think. And we don't yet know what this building is for, but Tesla has leased Austin's biggest ever speculative industrial building at 682,000 square feet. Another company broke ground on the building in March, and it's expected to be completed by January next year. This location is about 5 miles from Giga Texas. At this point, we do not know why Tesla is leasing this building, but this hyper expansion phase continues. And in a new Tesla app update that not everyone has yet, you'll now be able to tell if FSD is engaged in the mobile app. And I've always wanted this feature to check and see if my wife is actually using FSD, because there were times in the past when we were paying for it and she wasn't really using it. Today, SpaceX filed an application with the FCC for a Gen 3 Starlink constellation, which will dwarf the current Starlink system. The current system has just north of 10,000 satellites, but this Gen 3 is expected to eventually be over 100,000 satellites at even faster speeds. The goal? To offer ultra low latency multi-gigabit broadband service to orders of magnitude more users around the world. But this is not only for consumers, enterprises, and governments, but also to billions of AI-powered devices around the world. The Gen 3 system will provide the communications backbone of the AI age. AI requires massive uplink capacity to support HD spatial and auditory data needed for real-time decision-making and industrial automation. Without it, the US cannot compete in the AI revolution. While downlink capacity will remain essential to deliver broadband to end users, the rapid rise of real-time communications and audio-visual data processing for AI-enabled devices, including industrial automation, precision agriculture, telemedicine, and personal robotics, will also require a significant expansion of end-user uplink capacity. SpaceX also wants to orbit these satellites as low as 323 kilometers from Earth's surface. Its approval for the gigabit upgrades allows for orbits as low as 340 kilometers. SpaceX said by deploying these satellites at very low altitudes, the Gen 3 system will achieve unprecedented satellite diversity, ensuring multiple satellites are always visible from any point on Earth. As it stands now, SpaceX has regulatory clearance to launch right around 20,000 Gen 1 and Gen 2 satellites for Starlink. But clearly, 20,000 satellites is not nearly enough, as SpaceX is urging the FCC to fast-track this approval for Gen 3. And I think it's worth pointing out publications like PC Mag are saying this resulting Gen 3 system could make Starlink an even faster alternative to ground-based fiber, if it can pull off the multi-gigabit performance. So can SpaceX pull off fiber-like performance? I'm not so sure it happens soon, but between the order of magnitude increase in satellites and the lower orbiting, and including an expanded spectrum that they're operating in, paired with a new V3 hardware that is targeting 1 terabit per second down and 200 gigabits per second up, we should definitely see meaningful upgrades over time as these V3 satellites are deployed. But I still think for the average user on an average plan is not going to see fiber-like speeds for multiple years to come. And in a new SpaceX report we learned earlier this month, SpaceX disposed of 260 Starlink satellites between December last year and May this year, intentionally vaporizing them via re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. 176 of those satellites were Gen 1, and the rest were Gen 2. An additional 349 satellites were decommissioned within that 6-month period and will be disposed of in the coming months. But those operations are to be expected. These satellites should last in the neighborhood of 5 years, and then toward the end of the useful life, they begin their deorbit and are basically 100% incinerated upon re-entry. Just know some people are calling for new regulations for these activities because of what it may or may not do to the environment. But for now, the FCC is officially proposing that space-based operations be excluded from these new regulations because they're extraterritorial activities with effects located entirely outside the jurisdiction of the US. So we'll keep an eye on that one. I'm assuming some folks will wonder what's going on with SpaceX being added to the NASDAQ 100 today. That's supposed to be about $4 billion of passive buying, but SpaceX stock was down almost 7% today. Point number one, the market knew about this weeks ago, so it's yet again a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event. And two, normally a company as big as SpaceX joining would trigger a bigger wave of buying, but remember, only about 4% of SpaceX is available to buy and sell right now. So that small percentage is the float. And NASDAQ had a new rule as of May this year that said if only a small portion of a company is available to trade, then they're only going to give it a small spot on the list or in the index. That way, the forced buying can't be bigger than the shares that actually exist to purchase, which ultimately just means SpaceX will enter the NASDAQ 100, but only at about 0.5% of the entire index. And that's where that roughly $4.3 billion figure came from. That was an estimate from JP Morgan. And again, traders knew this was coming, so they bought it early and then sold to get out of the way. And that's the figure because about $800 billion copies the NASDAQ 100, and 0.5% of that number is the $4.3 billion. So that $4.3 billion was the estimated amount that was going to be forced to buy SpaceX shares. And given there's only about $85 billion of SpaceX shares available, that was only about 5% of SpaceX shares that are trading that had to be purchased for this inclusion. And the SpaceX quiet period is now over, so today we had many different Wall Street firms come out with new ratings on SpaceX. And of these 17 firms, 16 of them had a buy or outperform or overweight rating. Only one, MoffettNathanson, came in at neutral. And the price targets range from $130 on the low end up to $800 on the high end. So pause if you want to have a look, but I haven't really spent much time covering Tesla Wall Street calls over the years, and that has served us well. So I'm not planning to start with SpaceX either. And at time of recording, it's about 5 p.m. Eastern time right now. We still have no announcement about this cool, exciting scaling news we were supposed to hear about today. But hopefully, as I'm editing the video, something will come out, and then I'll record it and make sure to get it in this episode. Tesla stock closed the day at $402.90, down 4.02%, and SpaceX closed the day at $149.47, down 6.83%. This while the NDX was down 1.77%. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.